What's up everyone, my name is Tatsaigots and I will be talking about Anhur, the Egyptian slayer of enemies today. So let's start off with the overview. So first off here, it says that his difficulty is average and his pros are high single target damage. I tend to agree with this. He's not as simple as Neith would be, but he's definitely an easier ADC. He tends to fall off late game, but as far as his early game goes, that's where his strength lies. He has high single target damage, and that can be seen in his abilities, so let's jump right in. First, his passive. Anhur's spear attacks reduce the enemy target's physical protection for 3 seconds. This is physical protection debuff 15. So basically, he's gonna do more damage to you on his second hit rather than his first hit. And it carries on until 3 seconds is over, but you could reapply the stack over and over again. So it's when the last hit hits is when the last time it gets applied. Next, Shifting Sands. This is his first ability. First of all, this is a deployable, and it can be a form of an escape as well as a steroid. Usually you'd see it used in conjunction with Impale, because for Impale you can actually pin people onto the obelisk. Even though it's a quite small surface area, you could still do it, but it's rather difficult, especially for a person who's just starting out. So Anhur erects an obelisk from the ground, blocking all player movement. The surrounding sand slow enemies and increase the damage of Anhur's basic attacks against targets in the sand. So the slow is up to 35%, which is huge. You get your damage buff, which is up to 20%, and lifetime is 7 seconds. So already you could see that Anhur can do pretty big damage. With the physical protection debuff plus the damage buff onto the enemy target that's in the sand, already Anhur is doing massive amounts of damage, and this could be early on too. So you gotta be careful when laning against him, and this is a really strong point if you're the Anhur. Next is Impale. So basically this is his main clear. When you hit an enemy, it knocks them back. If you knock them into a wall, the enemy is stunned. So it says here, the stun duration is 1.1 to 1.5 seconds at top rank. Anhur hurls his spear with great might. If the spear hits a god, they take damage and are knocked back. Gods knocked back into a wall are stunned. The spear passes through minions, doing damage to them as well. This is important because he uses it as a lane clear, and since it's such a short range lane clear, he has to get right up to the minions, and you can predict when he's gonna do it, so you could stand in front of your minions, saving the back minions and only having him hit the front minions. This is important because once his Impale is down, then he has to rely on basic attacks, and you can have the upper hand on him. So just keep that in mind. However, it does hit pretty hard. He can hit full rank Impale by level 9-ish, so you'd get 350 damage plus 80% of your physical power. So definitely be careful for it. And when you're playing as an Anhur, if you have your enemy on the run and he has like half health, please don't use Impale. You're just pushing them away unless you could push them into a wall. If you could push them into a wall, that's great, but please don't use Impale unless they're, let's say, 20 health and you don't think you can hit the auto attack. So just keep that in mind. Definitely use it to secure the kill, not push him away from yourself, because, I mean, it's not very wise. I would just give up if they're at like half health. Next is Disperse. So it can be the escape and the initiation. It's important to notice that it actually knocks up enemies, so it sets you up for an Impale. His whole kit is kind of centered around the Impale so that you can pin them and then auto attack them to death, which is what hunters are all about. They're all about having at least one type of CC and kind of like one steroid to your auto attacks so that you can finish off the enemies. So you can knock them up, impale them into the wall, put down your Shifting Sands, and they will be obliterated. Anhur leaps to his ground target location, doing damage and knocking back all enemies in the radius where he lands. So the damage isn't that great, you know, rank 1 does 50, but usually you'll be using it to get away rather than initiating at rank 1, all the way up to 210 with 60% of your physical power. The cost does go up to 80, not a big deal. Yeah, Disperse is a really good ability, kind of slow like Neith's backflip, but not as slow as Neith's backflip. And finally, what gives Anhur his bursty high single target damage is the Desert Fury. Summoning the Fury of the Desert, Anhur hunkers down and throws empowered spears that pass through everything, and this is important to note, doing damage to all enemies in their path. He is immune to crowd control for the duration. So, remember earlier how I said Impale gets stopped by a god if you're trying to clear the wave. This will pass through everything. That means you could hit 2 gods at once. You could even hit gods through walls, you can hit gods through the shifting sands. Basically, this attack is kind of like an Impale, but, you know, a little less. You get 8 spears that are thrown, and per spear, the damage is up to 160. Early game, this is massive. You get 60 for each spear, so if you land each spear, you're doing massive amounts of damage, way more than Impale at rank 1, which is 90 damage. And the best part about this is that he's crowd control immune for the duration. The duration isn't like really long, like 10 seconds or something like that. It's only like a short, less than 5 seconds. But early game, you want to be using this offensively, so when you get an Impale, as soon as you Impale them, you use Desert Fury, finish off the kill with an auto attack. But late game, you want to be using this ability to either 1, close out the distance and finish off a kill, because this range is much longer than Impale and your auto attacks, as well as using it for CC. So basically, if someone has like a stun or a mez, then he's immune to the crowd control, so he could just keep doing what he's doing without having to sacrifice his beads. So let's go ahead and jump into jungle practice here with Anhur.
On. Warriors, to battle!
So similar to every other hunter in the game, you want to start out with your bluestone pendant, your tier 1 spike gauntlet, and 1 healing pot. And then by the time you're done your build, it'll look something like this.
They should fear me now.
Devour's Gauntlets, Ninja Tabby. I was experimenting with Anhur with an Aussie. I tend to find that it's not as effective as an Ichevol, so I would rather pick up an Ichevol, the Executioner, Rage, and Deathbringer. Usually what hunters will want to do is actually switch Ichevol out. Like when you have your full build here, you have 6 slotted item, you want to sell your Ichevol, get Aussie instead. Now what this does is basically, instead of having the progressing damage, especially on Anhur who already has that built into his kit, you'll get extra lifesteal. So instead of just having the 10 physical lifesteal plus whatever you end up with after stacks are done, you end up with an extra 15% physical lifesteal, and when the passive is going on, you get an extra 25% lifesteal. So that really helps, especially in the late game when you're going to be the target of everything. So just want to keep that in mind. Just going to rebuy Ichevol right now. And for our actives, we'll want the Greater Sprint and Pure Beads. So starting out with Impale, which is what you generally want to do, you see here I could hit them and it hits all of them in a line and clears the wave pretty nicely. If there was a god standing before the minions, then I would just hit the god rather than the minions and not affect the minions at all. So see here, it has a range of 55 units, which is where our auto attacks stop. So that's pretty important to note, especially if you're kind of like a mechanical player. So as you can see there, his autos are pretty well. I'm gonna pick up my disperse at rank 2, and he can target it up to 55 units as well. So this is what it looks like, and right there you could see one of the minions just popped up, and that's basically what it does to the gods as well. It's called a knock-up. So basically the god that you hit, any gods that you hit within the targeter, gets knocked up. And what this does is set you up for the impale. This is what the shifting sands look like. So you could pin anyone onto that as long as they hit onto that obelisk right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at Rawbot over here. So say the raw bot is like half health, you're like, okay, I could definitely take this raw on. So jump in, gets knocked up, impale into the wall, boom, he's dead. That's kind of what you're looking for, especially as an Anhur. If you're in the jungle and there's a lot of walls and surface area that Anhur can use, it is really good to use that to your advantage, because Anhur is really centered around his impale. As soon as you don't hit the impale, then things could go really badly. The only really other damaging thing he has is Desert Fury, and if Desert Fury is down, then I mean, you might not get the kill. So looking at Desert Fury, it goes well beyond the 70 unit mark, probably towards the 90, maybe 80. So right now I could hit raw. From here I can't hit raw, but I can hit raw with my ultimate. So let's go ahead and pin him here, and then I use that, and he's dead. Later on, when everyone's level 20 and everyone has their full protection builds and stuff like that, this will not matter really at all, because you're hitting 160. You actually do way more damage with your impale and auto attack combo. So just keep that in mind, that you should really be saving your Desert Fury as utility instead of using it to be aggressive and for initiation. I would rather people initiating with the disperse into impale so that you could get the stun onto the wall, because the stun lasts 1.5 seconds. So think about in a situation when you're in a team fight. So in a team fight, everything seems to go by really fast, but in reality it's only, let's say, 7 seconds maybe that your whole team could just die all at once. It is huge if you can take a certain god out of the equation for up to 1.5 seconds. So you just got to keep that in mind, especially when you're trying to hit your impales, that you make sure you hit your impale. And even if you don't stun them, if you're trying to get away, this is really good because it knocks back the person. So you're just running away, you turn around and you hit them with the impale, and that'll push the person away. So you see here, I'm level 20, Raw's level 20, so let's see how effective it is now. So you see there, he actually lived through the Desert Fury. I'm gonna reset right now and see if I can kill the Raw bot with impale and just auto attacks quicker. So you can see I didn't hit many criticals at all, but it was much quicker, I would say, with the Desert Fury. And if you can do that on every single god, then Anhur is just much more better just using his auto attacks rather than the Desert Fury. So I would definitely keep that in mind, because you don't want to keep on wasting your purification beads. Eventually you're going to need them, but you won't have them because you had to use Desert Fury. So try conserving the Desert Fury and beads, because you never know when you're going to need them. So once again, I'm just going to show you the basic combo that you should be trying as an Anhur. So disperse into an impale, and then auto attacking them to death. In a 1 versus 1 scenario where you're the enemy hunter, you think you could take them on, please be careful for ganks because you could be getting baited. The enemy jungler could be waiting right around the corner and you could just be getting baited into it. So let's check out the damage buff that you get from Shifting Sands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it took 5 in hands to take down this Raw. Let's see now, just with normally 3. So it's about the same here with criticals, but let me take off the crits to see if that will make any difference. I'm just gonna pop sprint here to make things go by quicker. So again, let's start with Shifting Sands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it'll take about 9 to kill the Raw without any critical whatsoever. Keep in mind that is also getting rid of 70, yeah, about 80 physical power. So let's see if we could beat 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it'll take 1 more auto attack if you land every single one of them. Of course, this isn't huge. It may not seem like it's huge, but when you think about it, I'm gaining stacks from the Devourer's Gauntlet, so I'm technically increasing my physical power a little bit. So, not necessarily the best example for you, but I'm trying here. So yeah, you could take your obelisk here, Shifting Sands, whatever you want to call it, put it behind the Raw bot, and pin it to him. Of course he went CC immune right there, so I actually couldn't pin him. I'm gonna take this opportunity to just reset him. So let's just take a look behind him. Put Shifting Sands down into the impale, so he's stunned right now, and take him down from there. You'll definitely want to do that because 1, you get the stun, 2, you get the damage buff, so you get the best of both worlds out of these 2 abilities. So once you become more skilled with Anhur, this should be like one of your go-to things when you have enough mana. Like, if you're coming out of the base fresh, you have 920 mana at level 20, you definitely want to do that. Just because it doesn't take that much, less than a quarter, so you still have enough to get away, and you have enough to do the same combo over and over again. But let's say you're at 100, 200 mana. Obviously at 100 mana you can't even use Impale, but at 200 mana you can use both, but then you'll be left with 10 mana. That means that you're not going to have enough to get away. So be careful of that. Other than that, I would definitely try using that, because the stun is huge. So yes, if you are looking to play ADC, definitely try out Anhur. He's a lot of fun. Make sure you're using your Desert Fury, especially early game, as an aggressive kind of ability, and then late game as a defensive ability, just so you could get out of those sticky situations without burning too many actives. So yeah, that's gonna do it from me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like, favorite, and subscribe.